There are words that fall like stones, heavy and forgettable. And then there are words that arrive like a breath in the dark, soft, invisible, but impossible to ignore. They do not belong to time. They belong to something older, something vaster. That is why you are here, not by accident. Something has drawn you to listen, the way longing pulls a reed toward the riverbank it once knew. When the soul recognizes its food, it leans in. Stay close, because this silence has something to tell you. And if these words awaken even a spark in you, then return often. Let this space be a field we share together. Follow the path, subscribe to the circle, so that each time we open this door, you are already waiting on the threshold. Before every poem Rumi ever gave the world, there was silence. Not the silence of emptiness, not the silence of absence, but a stillness alive with presence. It was not the pause before speech, but the breath that makes speech possible. To him, silence was never a gap to be filled. It was a teacher, a lover, a hidden pulse. There is a voice, he said, that doesn't use words. Listen. That voice was the beloved, moving through the hollow of his chest, speaking without sound, arriving without announcement. We live surrounded by noise, the endless chatter of our thoughts, the restlessness of our desires, the chaos of a world always in motion. Rumi knew that noise as well. He was not born into stillness. He felt the same distractions, the same ache of confusion that every soul feels. But then something broke in him, something cracked wide open. And through that crack, silence poured in like light. It was not nothingness. It was fullness, a presence too vast to be mistaken. He understood what most of us do not. Silence is not absence. It is doorway. Step through it, and the world does not disappear. It becomes more alive. Every sound grows sharper, every breath more sacred, every glance a revelation. When the heart grows quiet, even the smallest things become scripture. The creak of a door, the sigh of the wind, the rhythm of your own breathing. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is ordinary. All of it is a whisper of the beloved. His poetry carries this silence inside it, not only in the words, but in the spaces between them. In every pause there is an opening. In every break, a reminder that what cannot be spoken may be the most important truth of all. The fire of his longing needed silence the way flame needs air. Without silence, fire consumes and rages into chaos. Without fire, silence hardens into emptiness. Together, they created balance, word and stillness, sound and breath, flame and quiet. We imagine God as thunder, as lightning, as a voice that splits the sky. Rumi discovered the opposite. The beloved often enters like a whisper so soft it could be mistaken for your own thought. That is why silence mattered. Without silence, you miss the arrival. Without silence, you confuse noise for presence. The divine is not always a roar. More often it is a lover leaning close, so near you must lean closer still to hear. That leaning, that listening, that is prayer. When he asked us to listen to the voice that doesn't use words, he was not being poetic. He was offering instruction. He was describing the practice that transformed him. Listen, not only with ears, but with your skin, with your blood, with the ache that trembles in your chest when the world grows quiet. That ache is not loneliness. It is recognition. It is memory. It is the soul remembering its origin. For Rumi, silence was never empty. It was the space where the beloved stepped forward. And every time he wrote, every time he whirled, every time he wept with longing, He carried that silence with him. It was not a pause in life. It was the hidden life within life, the stillness that breathes, the presence that waits, the quiet that speaks. It was the beginning of every poem and the end of every search. There are truths that can only be spoken with the tongue, but there are truths too deep for speech, too wild for reason. They move not through words, but through the body. Rumi understood this. He knew that when the heart is overcome, when longing becomes unbearable, the body itself begins to pray. Every gesture, every movement, every breath turns into a hymn. That is why he whirled through the streets of Kanya, arms wide, robes spiraling like a flame, not to perform, but to dissolve. If you stay close to this fire, if you keep returning here, you will feel it too, the pulse that makes the body itself into scripture. Subscribe to the turning, remain in the circle, and each time the dance begins, you will already be part of it. It did not begin as ritual, it began as instinct. One day, hearing the steady hammer of a goldsmith's tools, something struck Rumi like thunder inside bone. He stepped into the rhythm, he spun, and the world spun with him. This was no metaphor, it was revelation, a soul so full of God that it could no longer stand still. He became the orbit of love itself, circling a center that was not his own. The dervish does not spin to escape the world. He spins to pierce it. One hand lifted toward the sky, the other lowered to the earth. The body becomes a bridge between realms. One receives, one gives. And in the endless turning, the ego dissolves. There is no I left to cling to, only the axis of love, still and eternal, around which everything moves. This was Rumi's prayer. Not words recited, but presence embodied. He taught with movement, with breath, with the willingness to vanish. His dance was not choreography, it was surrender, a living fire that reduced intellect to ash and revealed the gold beneath. To whirl was to say, I am not the center. I am what turns around the center. And that center is not me. That center is love. But this was not only his path, it is ours as well. Every body carries a hidden prayer, the tremor in your chest when you hear music that breaks you, the shiver along your skin when silence grows unbearable, the tears that rise without permission. These are not accidents. They are your body remembering. They are the beloved moving through you, asking you to join the dance. Rumi's spinning became a map. It told us that God is not only found in temples or scriptures. God lives in the marrow of your bones, in the rhythm of your steps, in the pulse of your veins. To pray is not only to speak, it is to breathe, to move, to surrender, to let the body become transparent enough that love itself begins to shine through. He did not teach with lectures. He taught by becoming. He dictated verses while walking, while weeping, while trembling. His students could barely write fast enough to capture the flood of words pouring out of him. But those words were not the source. They were the overflow. The true teaching was the state from which they came, a state of burning, of spinning, of vanishing into God. That is why the dance remains, not as performance, but as transmission. Each turn of the dervish is a reminder. We are not fixed. We are not separate. We are not the center. We are the motion of love around a stillness too vast to be named. To see a dervish whirl is to see a soul becoming transparent, to see a human dissolve into orbit, to see the body itself become prayer. And so the invitation remains, not to understand, but to join, not to analyze, but to surrender. Step into the rhythm. Feel the ground kiss your feet. Lift one hand toward the sky. lower the other toward the earth, and let go. What remains is not you. What remains is love. Some truths arrive in daylight, dressed in reason, clean and clear. Others come at night, cloaked in mystery, speaking in symbols too strange to be explained. Rumi trusted both. He knew that the soul does not rest when the eyes close. It wanders, it remembers, it listens. Dreams were not illusions to him. They were visitations. They were letters from the beloved written in the secret language of the dark. And if these words stir something inside you, stay close. Return here often. Subscribe not just to a channel, but to a journey, so that each time the door of night opens, you will already be waiting in the threshold of its light. Rumi did not treat dreams as fantasies. He treated them as scripture. A dream could strike him harder than a sermon, could move him more deeply than hours of study. He believed the beloved often spoke when the mind was most defenseless, when thought was surrendered, when reason was asleep. The dream was not a lie. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, the soul could glimpse its own forgotten face. In his poems, he wrote of visions, of faces that appeared and dissolved, of light that spoke without sound, of journeys that carried him beyond time. He told his students not to dismiss such things, not to call them shadows of the brain. The soul is older than the body, he said. When the body sleeps, the soul remembers. And what it remembers is not fantasy, but origin. There is a dream older than childhood, older than birth, the dream of union, the dream of returning to the ocean from which we came. Every human carries fragments of it, every night in sleep brushing against its edges. That is why longing never leaves us. That is why the ache is always there. Even when we forget, the soul remembers. Even when we turn away, the dream returns, whispering of what we once were. Rumi often described life itself as a dream. The walls we touch, the fears we cling to, the names we defend. He called them veils, thin as smoke, ready to be lifted. Death to him was not an ending. It was waking, a return to the deeper dream, the one more real than anything we call real now. Don't grieve, he said. What you lose will come around in another form. To him, even loss was only a shifting of shapes in the eternal dream of the beloved. What is a dream but a message in disguise? A lover's face appearing where it should not be. A bird circling a flame in the dark. A door opening onto a field with no end. These images were not random. They were maps. They were the beloved speaking in a tongue older than language. And Rumi listened. He listened so deeply that even his waking words carried the shimmer of the dream. His poetry is full of it, the strange logic, the sudden leaps, the impossible images that somehow feel truer than fact. To follow Rumi is to step into that dream with him. To trust that what comes to you in the night is not nonsense, but invitation. To believe that when a vision touches you, when you wake with tears you cannot explain, when you see a face in sleep that makes your chest ache, this is not accident. This is the beloved calling softly, dressing truth in symbol, so that your waking mind does not shatter under its weight. So listen, pay attention. The dream is not an escape from life. It is the place where life shows its hidden face. It is the language of the soul, the field where the beloved meets us without mask. And if you return to it with open hands, it will give you more than symbols. It will give you memory. It will give you the taste of the ocean in a single drop. There are teachers who arrive in human form, guides, friends, mirrors that ignite the soul. But there are also teachers older than words, silent and unassuming, always standing in the open for those who know how to look. Rumi found them everywhere, in trees bending with wind, in rivers carrying silence, in the fire that devours itself even as it gives light. He said that the entire world is scripture, and every element a verse. If you are here, listening now, it is because some part of you already knows this. Stay close. Follow this path with me. Subscribe to the circle, so that when the wind speaks again, you are already waiting in its song. Rumi did not look at nature as backdrop. He looked at it as revelation. The flame, the rose, the ocean, the reed. These were not decorations for his poems. They were teachers. He saw how the moth, trembling in darkness, flies into the fire without hesitation. He saw how the reed, cut from its bed, cries a song of longing. He saw how the drop of water, restless in its smallness, aches to return to the sea. Each of these became a mirror of the soul's own journey. The fire was not only fire, it was the beloved, consuming everything false so that only truth remains. The rose was not only rose, it was beauty aching to be seen, beauty that withers because it belongs to eternity, not time. The ocean was not only ocean, it was God, infinite and ungraspable, drawing every drop back into itself. Rumi did not study theology in these images. He lived theology through them. He let the earth speak the language of the divine. When he told us to pay attention, he did not mean to memorize doctrine. He meant, watch the way sunlight spills through leaves. Watch how the crescent moon refuses to compete with the stars, yet makes them shine brighter. Watch how the earth holds silence even while birthing forests, rivers, storms. This was prayer to him, not only kneeling, not only reciting, but opening your eyes wide enough to see that every part of the world is drenched in God. The beloved was not distant, not hidden in some unreachable place. The beloved was pouring through branches, burning in the hearth, humming in the river's current. To miss this was to sleep. To see it was to wake. Rumi's gift was that he did not separate the sacred from the ordinary. He collapsed the distance, the wind brushing your face, the fragrance of bread rising from the oven, the laughter of a child. These were not interruptions from God. They were God, and yet he knew how easily we forget. We walk past the rose without smelling it. We hear the river, but not its voice. We feel the warmth of fire, but not its invitation. That is why his poems return again and again to the earth. They are reminders. They are ways of saying, look closer. The universe is not outside you. The universe is within you, reflected in everything you touch. This is why his words last, because they remind us of what we already know but rarely remember, that life itself is teaching us, that no moment is wasted, that the silence of the mountain and the cry of the nightingale are speaking the same message. You belong to something greater. You are already part of the song, so when the wind moves, do not call it only wind. When the flame flickers, do not call it only fire. When the river runs, do not call it only water. Listen again. There is a voice beneath every element waiting to be heard. It is the beloved, wearing the face of the world, whispering, come closer, remember me. I was here all along. There are doors that no key can open. No argument, no reasoning, no teaching can force them wide. And yet one note of music, trembling in the air, can make them fall as if they were never locked. Rumi knew this secret. He knew that the soul cannot be lectured into awakening. It must be moved. And music was movement. It was the invisible hand that reached into the chest and turned longing into fire. If you have felt that before, if a song has ever broken you open without permission, then stay close. Return to this circle. Subscribe to the sound, so that each time the music begins again, you are already listening with us. The reed flute was one of Rumi's oldest companions. In its hollow cry, he heard the truth of separation. Cut from its source, the reed could not forget the riverbank where it once grew. Its music was not entertainment, it was longing made audible. He said the soul is the same. Torn from its origin, it cries out in the sound of yearning, and the whole universe is built from that cry. That is why music wounds us so sweetly. It reminds us of what we lost and what we are destined to return to. For Rumi, rhythm was not decoration, it was scripture. The steady beat of a drum was the heartbeat of the beloved, echoing through time. The pulse of the tambourine was the call of creation itself, and when he heard those sounds, he did not sit still. He moved, he spun, he surrendered. Music pulled him out of the cage of thought and into the wide sky of presence. It was not art, it was prayer. He spoke of notes the way others spoke of prophets. He said they carried messages. He said they spoke truths that words could never hold. A melody could dissolve pride faster than a sermon. A single rhythm could tear down walls that years of discipline had failed to move. That is why he trusted music so deeply. It bypassed the mind, it struck the heart, and the heart, once struck, never forgot. When he dictated his verses, they often arrived in rhythm. His students wrote furiously as he walked, as he wept, as he sang lines into the night. The poetry was inseparable from the music. The words carried the cadence of a song, as if they were meant to be breathed, not read. This is why his poems feel alive even centuries later. They were never only written, they were sung into being. He once said, "We rarely hear the inward music, but we're all dancing to it nevertheless." That was his vision, that beneath all noise, all chaos, there is a hidden harmony, a music so constant we forget it is playing. Every step we take, every breath we draw, is part of its rhythm. And when a song in this world touches us, it is only because it echoes that hidden tune, the original music of the soul. This is why music was sacred to him, because it did not just remind him of God. It was God, the sound of longing, the rhythm of return, the trembling of beauty too vast for thought. All of it was the beloved in audible form. To hear music deeply was to hear the universe remembering itself. So when you feel a song undo you, do not resist it. When your chest aches with the cry of a reed, or your skin shivers at the sound of a drum, know that this is not weakness. It is recognition. It is the soul remembering its source. It is the beloved calling you through sound, whispering in melody what silence alone cannot say. And if you lean close enough, if you surrender to the music instead of running from it, you may find that what you hear is not just a song. It is your own heart singing back. There are clocks that count hours, calendars that measure days, and minds that cling to the weight of years. But there is another kind of time, one that cannot be measured, one that slips through our hands each time we try to hold it. Rumi lived in that time. He called it the eternal moment. He said eternity is not far away, not hidden in some distant future. It is here, in this breath, waiting to be noticed. And if you lean close enough to hear these words, if you allow them to pause you for even an instant, then you are already touching it. Stay close. Subscribe to the circle of return, so that each time we step into this silence together, you remember the timelessness that was always yours. Rumi often spoke of life as short as a half-taken breath. He did not say this to make us afraid of endings. He said it to awaken us to beginnings. Every moment to him was a doorway, not one among many, but the only one that mattered. He warned his students, "Do not wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is a mirage. The only real place you will ever stand is here. And here, if entered fully, contains the entire ocean of eternity." He saw the way people wasted themselves, chasing shadows of the past, fearing ghosts of the future. He said both are illusions. The past has already dissolved. The future has not yet arrived. And yet we chain ourselves to both, forgetting that the beloved can only be met in the present. To meet God, you must meet now. There is no other temple. This is why his poetry feels so immediate. It is not written from memory, not cast into speculation. It arrives like lightning, alive with presence. He dictated lines while walking, while turning, while breaking open in grief or joy. His poems were not carefully built. They were caught as they fell, alive with the electricity of the moment. That is why they still breathe. They were born of eternity, breaking through time. Rumi called us to awaken. He told us that the moment we ignore is the moment that holds everything we are seeking. He said, "Be like a melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself." Why? Because the self that clings to the past and the self that fears the future cannot enter the eternal moment. Only the soul, naked of story, can. He knew the terror of letting go. He knew the mind trembles when stripped of its timelines, when told to step into the raw now. But he also knew that this trembling is the beginning of freedom. To live in the present is to live as eternity lives. It is to taste the timeless within the fragile, to drink infinity from a single breath. He did not ask his followers to renounce the world. He asked them to see the world as it really is, a flicker of God in constant motion, each second dissolving into the next, each instant pregnant with the whole of creation. The river does not wait. The flame does not hesitate. Why should you? To Rumi, every heartbeat was a reminder. Every inhale was creation. Every exhale was return. And in between, in the thin silence between breaths, there was eternity. This was the secret he carried, that eternity is not somewhere else, but hidden inside the fragile, vanishing now. So pause. Listen. This moment is not small. It is infinite, wearing a mask of brevity. It is the beloved, disguised as time, whispering to you, "Do not wait. Do not pass me by. I am here, and I am forever." Not every guide arrives in robes. Not every teacher stands upon a platform or carries a sacred book. Some arrive as strangers on the road. Some appear as friends who wound us. Some come as enemies, pressing us until we break. Rumi knew this. He said the beloved hides in every form, testing us, shaping us, calling us home. If you are here now, listening, it is because you too have felt that truth, that wisdom sometimes wears the most unlikely face. Stay close. Subscribe to the circle, so that each time another hidden teacher appears in your life, you recognize the lesson instead of turning away. Shams was the most obvious teacher, the flame that tore Rumi open. But even Shams was not the end of the lesson. He was only a mirror. Rumi understood that the beloved disguises itself endlessly. The sharp question of a stranger, the silence of a friend, the cruelty of a rival, all of it could pierce the ego and reveal what lay beneath. He told his students not to reject such encounters. He told them to bow, even to the ones who hurt them, especially to those, because the wound, he said, is where the light enters. Rumi once described life itself as a classroom without walls. Every moment, every meeting, every loss and gain was part of a single lesson: to remember the beloved, to treat each face as a scripture, each voice as a verse. The proud man who insulted him, the child who laughed in the street, the beggar who reached out his hand. None of them were accidents. Each carried a piece of God's voice, hidden behind the mask of form. He told stories of prophets disguised as beggars, saints hidden as wanderers, and the divine itself walking in plain sight, unrecognized. To Rumi, the world was thick with these hidden teachers. Most people walked past them, blind. But he insisted, "Open your eyes. Pay attention. The beloved is speaking through every mouth, even the mouths that curse you." This was not romantic softness. It was fierce clarity. Because to see God in the stranger is easy. To see God in the one who wounds you, that is the true test. Rumi did not run from those who opposed him. He turned toward them. He asked, "What is the beloved trying to show me here? What part of myself is breaking open under this pressure?" He saw even pain as a tutor, even betrayal as a lesson in love. His vision leaves no one outside the circle. Not the friend, not the enemy, not the indifferent passerby. All are threads of the same tapestry. All are voices of the same beloved. He said, "What you seek is seeking you," which means the teacher you need will come. And sometimes that teacher will not look like love. Sometimes it will look like loss, like grief, like anger. But beneath the mask, it is always the same presence, pressing you deeper into surrender. To live this way is to refuse to divide the world into sacred and profane. It is to see each encounter as holy ground. It is to trust that every person you meet, every event that strikes you, is a mirror. And the reflection is not theirs alone. It is yours. It is the beloved's face staring back through their eyes, waiting to be recognized. So look again at your life, at the stranger who brushed past you, at the friend who disappointed you, at the enemy who refuses to leave you in peace. What if each of them is a teacher? What if each of them carries the beloved in disguise? Would you run from them, or would you bow? Rumi bowed, not to the form, but to the light behind the form. And in bowing, he turned every meeting into prayer. Most people fear the dark. They rush to fill it with distraction, with noise, with anything that will keep them from facing its silence. But Rumi turned toward it. He knew that night was not an enemy, and pain was not a punishment. He called them doors. He said the places we most want to avoid are often the very places where the beloved waits. If you feel that truth stirring in you now, stay near. Subscribe to this circle of words and silence, so that each time the night returns, you are already walking with us through its hidden gates. Rumi wrote of sorrow not as a curse, but as a gift. He said the wound is the place where the light enters. That sentence was not comfort, it was experience. He knew that when the heart breaks, when the world turns dark, something inside becomes open in a way it never was before. The ego cracks, the defenses fall, and through that opening, the beloved steps forward. He told us not to run from grief, not to numb it, not to call it meaningless. He told us to lean into it, to let it burn, to let it strip us bare. Because in that burning, in that stripping, the false falls away, and only the true remains. To suffer without seeing God in it is despair. To suffer and recognize the beloved hidden in the pain, that is awakening. The night was his teacher. He described its silence as holy, its stillness as alive. He knew that the stars are not visible in daylight, but only in darkness. In the same way, certain truths only appear when joy has dissolved, when certainty has crumbled, when everything else is gone. Then, in the blackness, something glimmers, a presence, a whisper, a light too subtle to see in brighter hours. He often compared the soul to a candle. A candle shines not by denying darkness, but by standing inside it, trembling and alive. The flame cannot exist without the night. The night is what makes its glow possible. And so he asked his students to stop fearing the shadows of their lives. He asked them to see every sorrow as a backdrop against which the light of the beloved could be revealed. This was not an easy teaching. To see God in joy is natural. To see God in loss is radical. Yet this was Rumi's gift, to collapse the division between good and bad, between light and dark, between presence and absence. He told us that the beloved wears all masks, even the mask of grief, even the mask of silence, even the mask of what we most fear. He knew this because he lived it. When shams vanished, whether murdered or ascended into mystery, Rumi's heart split open. The grief could have destroyed him. Instead, it remade him. The poetry we read today, the fire we feel in his words, was born from that darkness. Without the night of loss, there would be no radiance of his verse. His brilliance was not in avoiding pain. It was in letting pain become light. So when darkness falls in your life, remember, the night is not the end. It is a door. The ache in your chest, the silence that surrounds you, the weight of loss that feels unbearable, all of it is an opening. All of it is the beloved, knocking softly, disguised as shadow. Step into the night. Do not resist it. Look closely. You will see what Rumi saw. The light was there all along, waiting to be revealed. There are flames that destroy, leaving only ash behind, and there are flames that purify, burning away what is false until only gold remains. Rumi lived inside the second fire. He did not write about love as something sweet and harmless. He wrote about it as a blaze that consumes the ego, a heat that strips away every mask. And if you are listening now, if you feel even a spark of that fire in your own chest, then stay near. Return here often. Subscribe to the circle, so that each time this flame rises again, you are already standing within its glow. Rumi knew suffering not as theory, but as reality. He lost friends, he faced exile, he endured the unbearable disappearance of shams. These wounds did not crush him, they ignited him. He discovered that grief itself was a furnace. Inside its heat, something in him melted and reformed. The scholar he had been, the safe teacher, the man of books, these all burned away. In their place rose the poet of fire, the mystic whose words still scorch across centuries. He told his students, "The cure for the pain is in the pain." He meant that running from fire only leaves you untransformed. To step into it, to allow it to consume you, is to discover that what burns is not your essence, but your illusions. The false identity, the fragile ego, the grasping desires, these are what turn to smoke. What remains is the soul, naked and luminous, indestructible. This is why he wrote of love not as possession, but as annihilation. Love, to him, was the fire in which the self is undone. He said true love is not about gaining anything. It is about losing everything that is not real. To love is to be reduced to dust, and in that dust, to find eternity. When Rumi spoke of the beloved, he did not mean comfort. He meant fire. A presence so fierce it unravels your certainties, so consuming it leaves you trembling, so radiant it blinds you to everything else. This was not metaphor. It was lived truth. He was not describing fire. He was burning as he spoke. And yet this fire was never cruel. It was not meant to punish. It was meant to reveal. Just as gold is purified by heat, the soul is refined by love's flame. What looks like loss is transmutation. What feels like death is rebirth. The burning is not the end. It is the beginning. This is why Rumi bowed even to his pain. He said every ache was a gift, every grief a hidden mercy. To suffer was to be polished. To lose was to be emptied, so that the beloved could pour in. He did not ask us to avoid the fire. He asked us to trust it, to let it take what it must, knowing that what remains is more real than anything we thought we had before. So when the fire comes into your life, through love, through loss, through the unbearable heat of longing, do not resist it. Do not run. Step into it. Let it burn you clean. Because what you fear losing is not your truth. What you are will not be destroyed. What you are will be revealed, and in that fire, you may discover what Rumi discovered, that love is not gentle, but it is holy. That burning is not the end of you, but the end of everything you are not, and that in the ash of your illusions, the beloved waits, shining. We are trained to search for holiness in distant places, temples, scriptures, mountains, skies. We imagine God as far away, wrapped in mystery, hidden behind walls of ritual. But Rumi shattered that distance. He told us that the beloved does not hide in heaven. The beloved hides in dust, in bread, in the glance of a stranger. And if these words already stir recognition in you, stay close. Return here often. Subscribe to this circle so that each time the ordinary world opens its secret face, you are already ready to see it. Rumi saw no separation between sacred and mundane. To him, the divine did not descend only through prayer or fasting. It pulsed through every gesture of life, the kneading of dough, the pouring of tea, the silence between footsteps. These were all altars, if the eyes were open. He said, "The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything you want, you already are. And once you see this, the world itself becomes scripture." The market was as holy as the mosque. The cries of merchants, the smell of bread, the laughter of children running through narrow streets. These were hymns, no less sacred than chants of devotion. The beloved did not require silence to be found. The beloved whispered through noise just as clearly, if only the heart was listening. Rumi's metaphors were always drawn from the simplest things. A rose, a loaf of bread, a sip of wine, a reed crying out. He did not choose these because they were poetic. He chose them because they were real, because he knew that holiness cannot be trapped in abstraction. It must be tasted, smelled, touched. That is why his words still burn. They remind us of what we overlook each day. When he wrote of bread, he was not simply feeding the body. He was pointing to the hunger of the soul, the ache that no earthly food can satisfy. When he wrote of wine, he was not praising intoxication. He was pointing to the ecstasy of surrender, the drunkenness of the soul in the presence of the beloved. Every image was ordinary. Every image was sacred. He told us that to search endlessly for God elsewhere is to miss the invitation that is always in front of us. The taste of water when you are thirsty, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the relief of sitting after a long walk. These are not small things. These are revelations. They are the beloved showing up disguised as simplicity. This was his radical gift, to collapse the distance, to insist that there is no exile from God, not because we are good enough, but because the beloved refuses to be absent. He said, "What you seek is seeking you," which means that even the ache you feel in your chest is not yours alone. It is God, leaning toward you, through your own longing. So look again at the world around you, at the bread on the table, at the dust in the street, at the laughter that fades too quickly. None of these are ordinary. None of them are separate. They are the beloved wearing everyday clothes, waiting for you to notice. Rumi did not ask us to climb higher. He asked us to look deeper, to let the simplest things become teachers, to see the divine not as far away, but as unbearably near. So near, in fact, that you cannot separate your breath from the breath of the beloved. And when you finally see this, when the ordinary breaks open into radiance, you will understand why Rumi never grew tired of pointing at dust and bread and roses, because in them he saw what he saw everywhere: God shining through everything, waiting to be remembered. There are moments when you look into someone's eyes and something breaks, not because of who they are, not because of what they say, but because for an instant you glimpse something beyond them, something vast, something infinite. Rumi called this the mirror of the beloved. He said that lovers don't meet somewhere, they're in each other all along. And if you've ever felt that flash of recognition, if you've ever seen eternity flicker behind a human face, then stay close. Subscribe to this circle so that each time the mirror appears again, you know how to recognize what it's showing you. Rumi never confused the form with the light. When he looked at Shams, he did not see only a man. He saw a sun burning through human flesh. He saw God's presence wearing the mask of friendship. And when Shams vanished, Rumi realized the truth. The beloved had never been outside him at all. Shams was only a reflection, a mirror polished enough to reveal what had always been hidden within. This was the heart of his vision. Every encounter is a mirror. Every person, no matter how fleeting, carries the chance to show you the face of the beloved. Sometimes it comes through love, sometimes through loss, sometimes through a stranger's passing glance. The form changes. The light does not. He said the divine is always near, but we only see it when the mirror is clear enough, when our own eyes are open enough to recognize it. That is why he warned against clinging. To hold too tightly to the form is to mistake the mirror for the sun. He did not worship Shams as a man. He worshipped the light that shone through him. The true beloved cannot be lost, because it was never contained in a body, never bound by a name. It lives inside every soul, waiting to be seen. This was not sentimentality. It was clarity. The beloved in human form will always pass, always change, always vanish. But the beloved, the light itself, remains. To see this is to be free from despair, to love not as possession, but as revelation, to understand that the one before you is not the end of the story, but the page on which God is writing his presence. Rumi's poetry pulses with this truth. His verses about lovers are never only about lovers, they are about recognition, the shock of seeing yourself and beyond yourself in the gaze of another. He wrote of wine and drunkenness not to describe desire, but to describe the dissolving of boundaries, the falling away of separation. What intoxicated him was not the other. It was the one moving through the other. That is why he could say, "I am merely the house of your beloved, not the beloved herself." He knew the human self is only a vessel. The treasure is inside. To mistake the vessel for the treasure is to miss the point. To look through the vessel and glimpse the treasure is to wake. And so he taught us to look differently, to see with more than eyes, to meet each face not as an object, but as a mirror, to let every meeting undo us, reveal us, strip us of illusion. Because if you look deeply enough into the eyes of another, You will not find them. You will not even find yourself. You will find the beloved. This is the final intimacy. Not two selves joining, but two selves dissolving in the light they were reflecting all along. A drop falls into the sea, and in that moment it loses everything it thought it was. No longer small, no longer separate, no longer trembling with fear of vanishing. It dissolves, and in dissolving it discovers the truth. It was never only a drop. It was the ocean in disguise, pretending for a moment to be small. Rumi saw the soul in the same way. He said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." This was not poetry to him. It was reality. He knew that what we call identity, our names, our fears, our desires, is only a costume worn by the infinite. Beneath it, we are not fragments. We are not exiles. We are the beloved, remembering itself through our eyes. The soul is not a visitor in the world. The world is a visitor in the soul. This is why he spoke of longing not as emptiness, but as memory. That ache you feel, that unshakable hunger for something you cannot name, is not weakness. It is the ocean calling itself back. It is the echo of the time before time, when you were not a self, but light. Even now, the current pulls you inward, not forward into some future, not backward into some past, but inward into what you always were. For Rumi, awakening was never about becoming. It was about remembering. You are not asked to add anything, not asked to earn anything, not asked to climb to distant heights. You are asked to melt, to let the false drop away, to wash yourself of yourself until what remains is simple, luminous, eternal. Until what remains is the ocean, free of the illusion of being a drop. He said, "Be like melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself, because the snow that melts does not disappear. It returns to the river, to the sea, to the great cycle it never truly left. In the same way, when the ego dissolves, when the mask of separateness falls away, you do not vanish. You return. You become what you always were. You become what cannot be broken." This is the secret of the mystic's joy, that death is not loss, that love is not possession, that the soul is not fragile. All veils will fall, all forms will pass, but what you are cannot be undone. The ocean waits for you. It has always been waiting. And the truth is, you never truly left. So let the drop dissolve. Let the ocean rise within you. Do not fear the vanishing, because what vanishes is only the mask. What remains is everything. What remains is the beloved. And if these words have stirred something in you, if they have reminded you even for a moment of the ocean within your own chest, then stay close. Let this circle be your reflection. Leave your voice here in the form of a comment so that we can hear how the ocean remembers itself through you. Offer your gratitude as a like, your presence as a subscription, and return often. Because each time we meet in this way, it is not me you are hearing. It is the beloved speaking again through silence, through fire, through words, through you.